Hey, everybody, and welcome to week two's episode of On the Move with the Caravan Sports Preview Show. I'm Chris Miller. That's Jim Powers. Jim, how are you doing today?
We got to cut that clip. I'm tired of seeing myself getting water dumped over my head.
That's
We got to
never going
change
to happen.
that.
No way, man. We are keeping that
Oh,
forever.
you
Love
know
it.
what? I'm waiting for somebody to bring back the ice bucket challenge. I mean, honestly, it was for a great cause, and it was a
It
lot of
was.
fun. It
It,
was a lot of fun just calling everybody out under the sun just to see them get a bucket of ice water dumped on their head. And I'm sure a lot of people would pay to do that to me, you, and the rest of the crew. So there it is.
okay, maybe there might be a few people. I mean, there's just a small handful of people out there that would do that for sure. Anyway, we had a great week of
Yeah.
high school football in week one, and I mean, we'll just throw up the graphic on some of the scores from the games that we previewed last week. Herculaneum Windsor ended up being kind of a defensive slugfest with Herculaneum falling 6-7. Hillsboro Sykeston, man, I'll tell you what, Hillsboro's really good. They defeated Sykeston 63-14. The surprise I thought, which even though you said SLU High, man, they're going to be good, they took care of St. Mary's 38-21. Fort Zumwalt North and Francis Howell, that was another good game, but North falling 17-21. Valley Catholic Seckman, that did not turn out the same way, even though Valley kind of rallied in the second half. The Seckman ended up winning 34-21, and DeSmet coming out on top 44-21 against Kirkwood. So again, we had some really good ones the first week. But Jim, let's kind of recap that a little bit.
Yeah, and once again, you kind of saw some of the things go the way that we expected them to go to. I think you saw a couple teams that you're going to have to watch. And then with the classifications coming out, it kind of adds a little bit of fuel to the fire, so to say. Zoomy North, Joe Bacon's built a program. He does a terrific job. And they gave Hal everything they wanted. Hal had to lean on their defense, especially in the second half, in order to come away with that victory over a really vastly improved, Zumwalt North team. And then you look at Seckman. I didn't expect them to come out of the gate the way they did, and they took it to Valley. But I bet you if there was 8 minutes left, Valley would have cut that thing a little bit closer. Valley is going to be a team to watch in Class 2. They're going to, they dropped down from 3-2. They're a team that's going to really, really be somebody to watch. DeSmet does what DeSmet does. That's when, it was an 11-7 game at half. DeSmet was only leading by 4. But then I think the numbers game kind of got to Kirkwood, and DeSmet just kind of beat him up, wore him down, and was able, they took advantage of a early third quarter turnover by the Pioneers, scored, and then the floodgates kind of opened a little bit. DeSmet, the MCC is going to be extremely interesting to watch this year. And after, what SLU did, SLU's got a quarterback in Sandstone that could chuck the ball around a little bit. And you've got Wingo, the number one dude in the state that everybody's waiting to see where he's going to go to college. And they're putting him in places that he's going to be able to be successful, get yards, score touchdowns. St. Mary's, they're a team that's very young, very inexperienced. They've got a couple nice pieces to it, but the bottom line is I don't know with them moving up to 5 if they're going to be able to hang with the big boys. And we kind of saw a little bit of a glimpse of that this past weekend against a really talented SLU High team.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of one of those that was interesting to see is how they would respond to that and playing the bigger schools. But then again, hey, the championships aren't necessarily lost in week one, and they definitely aren't won in week one. You just try to build on it for those games coming up and to the end of the year. And we kind of touched a little bit on it. Now we have the rankings that just came out. So let's take a look real quick at Class 6. Class 6 right now, Jim. What's your thought on that?
No surprises, really. I mean, Lee Summit North and Liberty North had a heck of a ball game. Summit North wins late. CBC goes out to Carmel, Indiana, runs up over 570 yards total offense. How moving up to Class 6, they escape, but they're still one of the strongest teams in the state. Rockhurst with a great win. DeSmet in there at number 7. Marquette, once again, that backyard rivalry with Lafayette, they were able to come out on top. They got a big one this week against Summit that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, not a lot of surprises. SLU just on the outside looking in. And I think you're going to have to talk about Seckman too, because Seckman can reel off some games, and you need to keep them in that Class 6 ranking.
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of surprised on that one. And you spoke about Hal jumping up to Class 5, so that one seems to be wide open here as we switch over to Class 5. So, Jim, give us your thoughts on that one.
It's not wide open. Give it to Ritter. And in all honesty, I mean,
there was a little sarcasm that I threw out there. I don't know if anybody else caught that.
But no, I mean, Cardinal Ritter, the rare 2-class jump. And they came out, they beat McClure 54-6, I think, on Saturday afternoon after the rain. They've got a lot of the pieces coming back from last year, and that's huge. Grain Valley is a really talented team. They're the best team out on the western part of the state. Eureka, they got a nice victory over Zumwalt West, and they did it the unconventional way. They passed the ball a little bit. They scored 3 touchdowns through the air and threw for over 275 yards. Webb City, they lost a tight one to Class 6 Nixa, 14-10. Great ball game. New head man down there, but same program. It was John Rodriguez, longtime assistant, that took over the reins. They're going to be just fine, and they're going to be in the conversation when the end of the season hits. And then you look down, Fort Osage, a team we saw last year, make another deep run. They're sitting in there. MICDS is there as well. So just an interesting group in Class 5, and it's going to be a lot of fun to track this because you got a Summit team just on the outside looking in. You've got some other teams that are going to be really talented. It's going to see where and how deep Class 5 could really be this year.
Yeah, there was a lot of teams that received votes in Class 5, and I think, as my sarcasm gives way, Ritter being the overall number one. I mean, such a dramatic difference in points from first to second in the rankings only shows you how the voters feel about that one too. And then moving to Class 4, and I mean, I think Class 4 is kind of a log jam. That's just me looking from the outside in. Jim, why don't you give us your thoughts on it?
It is. It's Smithfield deservedly so needs to be the number one team right out of the gate. Lutheran North moves up from 3 to 4, and we'll get to see a lot of what Lutheran North is all about because they get to go down to Blair Oaks this week. Again, the Crusaders and Kyle Wagner, they play the toughest schedule in the state of Missouri. They're again going to play 3 state champions this season. But then you look at Hillsboro, and we talked about how they beat up Sykeston. And they've got some games on their schedule. If they can get around those, they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be a high seed, and they're going to make a lot of noise once again. And you don't have Cardinal Ritter to worry about, and that's the big thing. On this side, you don't have a lot of landmines to concern yourself with. Then you look at Grandview from Kearney and Grandview from out west, and then you got Festus. I mean, okay, I've been saying it. I hope people are starting to listen. I said it since, I'm on the voting panel again. Thank goodness. There's some sense of a realistic voice on the panel from St. Louis this year. People are starting to understand that Jefferson County's got great football, and you're seeing it now. When's the last time we saw Hillsboro and Festus ranked in the top 10? We haven't. We're seeing it. Now, do they've got both big games coming up? Yeah, absolutely, including one against each other. They both got to play, some of the big kids on the block, in the I-55 in the Mississippi Valley, but it's still great football. And then you look at the usual suspects down below. Harrisonville loses 15-10 to MICDS. Hannibal gets beat up by, Helias. I'll be interested to see how Hannibal kind of, picks themselves up off the mat. Bolivar and Nevada, both really, really good clubs.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got some really good teams, I think, in Class 4. And personally, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to that matchup between both state-ranked Hillsboro and Festus. And you were right when you said it, man. We have a lot of good football that's starting to be played here in Jefferson County, and some really good programs. As you said, we got Seckman, we got Hillsboro, we got Festus. We've got some good smaller schools that are playing really well. And there's Crystal
City got votes in the Class 1 poll. And I want to say this because a lot of people are probably wondering why only 5 teams in Class 1. Class 1 took the big hit with the 10 teams going up to Class 6, and then you got some teams that shifted back to 8-man. So that's why we decided as a panel to just do top 5 for the Class 1 schools. And if it was a top 10, Crystal's in the top 10. Crystal came out of the gate, coming off of last year, having a terrific year, and they came out of the gate with a nice victory last weekend. So, Crystal's going to be a team to watch. I mean, once again, people just don't get it. They don't understand how good the football is down there. We talked about 5-6 years ago about the football in St. Charles County. When House started to turn the corner a little bit, you had some really good teams at Zumwalt West. Now, you don't want to go play in the GAC because you will get beat up in the GAC. And that's why people don't want to schedule them in non-conference games. Now, people are starting to look at Jeffco feeling the same way because we're seeing the football in Jefferson County really, really take effect and explode.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only going to, I feel it's only going to get better. And we've already, I mean, our highlight games here are showcasing some of that shortly. And we'll go ahead and just jump right into it.
Yeah.
And of course, our first game that we're going to look at here is a matchup here at St. Pius. We have the 0-1 Bishop DeBerg is going to be taking on 1-0 St. Pius the 10th. Despite getting 149 yards receiving from senior wide receiver Keenan Thomas, the Cavaliers are coming off of a heartbreaking 28-34 overtime loss to DeSoto in week 1. The Lancers started Coach Frank Ray's career off with a 23-10 win over Class 4 Clayton/Brentwood Co-op in their first game of the season. Despite a slow start in the rain, St. Pius the 10th owned the ground game, led by junior running backs Justin Lane and Alex Westerman, who both netted 120-plus yards rushing each. The Lancer defense was even more punishing, racking up 6 sacks, 3 of those actually by Lane himself, and a safety in the game. Last year, St. Pius 10th got a big 47-0 win over DeBerg. Jim, how do you see this one shaking up?
Yeah, and this is a vastly improved DeBerg team, and they're getting their numbers. Chad Masters is doing a terrific job. That program was an absolute shell of itself a couple years ago. And you look to see what Chad's done. And he's got his son at quarterback who's really, really talented. He's got some pieces around there. So, are they going to be a team that people are going to look to walk over? Absolutely not. And Pius can't look ahead of this DeBerg team because, DeBerg can come up and they can get you. But I really like this Pius team. It was great to see Coach Ray get his first victory as the head coach. And there's a lot of great pieces to the puzzle there. So that's why, this is an interesting game. It's an interesting game for both of these two teams to see what they have to do. And plus you get, DeBerg, Hancock making the trip down to, Jeffco to play in a great facility at Pius. And so it'll be a lot of fun to see that. I'm going to lean towards Pius, but it will not surprise me if that game comes down to the wire like the game last week between DeBerg and DeSoto came.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, you can actually watch that this Friday night on, I'll just throw out the teaser already. We'll just go ahead and jump into the Between the Lines Friday Night Football. It's going to be on the Coach's Box YouTube page. You can't miss it. And if you do, you're going to miss Zach McVeigh. And we're actually going to have one of our students here at St. Pius who's wanting to get into broadcasting. He's going to jump in and he's going to be with Coach McVeigh. I'm just going to be there kind of running some stuff. I'm the nobody here and nobody wants to hear me talk that much anyway. So it's I think it's going to be really cool that we're going to incorporate that. And then hopefully if everything goes smoothly, knock on wood, then we're going to have a pretty good time doing that and hopefully get a few more games in the future. I always like helping other people get started in something like this. For me, it's a hobby, but for other people, that's the career that he wants to choose.
And that's great that you're getting the kids involved. And the great thing is, you don't have to pay for it. It's not behind a paywall. It's not anyplace else, and it's great to get the kids involved and let the kids announce. I mean, some of the schools that do the student broadcasts up here in St. Louis, I mean, they're fun. They're funny. It's just great to hear the kids having a blast. And so we're excited about that with the company, Off the Rails. And it's going to be awesome. And we're going to hope to do a lot of that, especially during basketball season with my availability being a little bit better and all that stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to bring some games out there to everybody. except for
Absolutely.
soccer, because we all know you don't like soccer.
Well, I respect soccer, Jim, but I personally don't like watching soccer.
You don't want to talk about the new card rules that high school has instituted for soccer this year?
Moving on to our next matchup. Our next matchup. Here we go. I got the graphics to jump up in time. Our next highlighted game features 2 Week 1 winners, the Ladue Rams hosting the Lindbergh Flyers. Lindbergh comes into the matchup on a high after a 34-7 win against Chaminade last week. The Flyers used an assortment of rushers on offense with a stingy defense that netted 3 picks, 2 by senior defensive back Terrell Watts, to get the win. Ladue defeated Westminster 17-13 in a defensive slugfest. The Rams also used a stingy defense of their own to force 3 takeaways on to get their own win. Last season, the Flyers won this matchup 43-17. So, Jim, what do we see in this one?
Two teams are going to chuck the ball all over the place. Let's put that to bed right now. This game could be a 4-hour game pretty easily because these two teams are pass happy. No, two really, really, well-coached teams. They both got great offenses, and we saw that last week. So it'll be interesting to see defensively how these teams are going to try and scheme against each other. I really like Lindbergh, especially the back end of their defense in the secondary, because they've got some veteran dudes out there, and they were able to slow down. Chaminade's still growing pains and trying to get some things figured out with their young kids. But I really like what Lindbergh's got secondary wise. You flip the coin to Ladue, I like their linebacking core. They're going to put a lot of heat on the Lindbergh quarterback. So this game's going to be a toss-up. And honestly, I think the home field advantage, it'll go to Ladue because it's at their place, and it'll be a packed house for that one on a Friday night. So this will be a good one to kind of see where both these two teams are after nice victories in week 1.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, again, talk about environment. I think at Ladue, it's going to be just, and that's, I just love Friday night football, man. I can't wait to see the game this weekend here at St. Pius.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I didn't ask you this, and we'll go ahead and jump here to this real quick. Do you feel like some of those games played last week, we had all the heat and stuff, we had teams that played inside, or practice inside, and then we have some schools that played on Friday night, and we have some schools that played Saturday. What do you feel like that had the effect on some of these games?
And first off, I'll say this: hats off to all the trainers, athletic directors, coaches, and for
Absolutely.
keeping the kids safe, keeping the kids to where they can be safe and do what they love to do, and that's participate. But no, honestly, I think, especially on the football side. Now, the other sports, softball, it's going to make a difference because there's some schools that don't have indoor facilities like a batting cage or different things like that. Same thing with soccer. You've got schools that sometimes can't get a field. I give everybody a lot of credit. I think it hurt the softball, the other sports, so to say. I don't think it really affected the football guys that much because they were able to get out at either 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night. So it'll be interesting to see. This week will be a little bit more interesting to see because now everybody's got a full week under their belt. It's a normal game week, except for some of the teams. You actually had 2 games on Sunday afternoon up here in the St. Louis area.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. There was actually 2 games that played because of the storms that blew through on Saturday morning. It wiped out the fields, and so they had to, maneuver and get permission to play.
That's just wild, man. But you're right. I mean, hats off to everybody who was involved in making that happen, even our officials who had to give up some of their time on a weekend that maybe they didn't expect for this to happen. But when you have extenuating circumstances like the heat that we were dealing with, and then obviously the rain that came through on Saturday, it's just like, hey, Mother Nature's throwing that curveball. You got to be ready. And everybody stepped up for the kids. And that's the best part about it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it was awesome to see. And, made it a little bit interesting for me because with all the 8 o'clock starts and having to be, on Fox 2 at 10:30, I just decided to stay home and watch games instead of going to a game because I've only been able to maybe see a quarter or a half. This week will be a little bit different. So, but yeah, everybody did a terrific job to get things going.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, we're going to finish up with our other preview matchups. So you're watching On the Move with the Caravan Sports Preview Show. We will return.
captain of the Pee Wee football team. We may be small, but we are
mighty,
annoying. And you are so tired from playing defense against us that your focus is about to ride the bench. Go, go, go. Thanks, Mom.
bye.
Come on, come on. And if you have cut rate car insurance, then not even a Hail Mary will save you from paying for this. So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Mayhem is everywhere. Are you in good hands?
Are you tired of boring sports talk shows? Then tune in to the Coach's Box. These guys don't just talk sports. They talk about whatever the heck they want to talk about. Watch new episodes of the Coach's Box each week for free on Facebook, YouTube, or the Streamline Sports app.
All right, everybody, welcome back to On the Move with the Caravan Sports Preview Show with Jim Powers, and we're going to jump into our the rest of our preview matchup games. So, I think, Jim, I do think these next 4 games are some really good matchups. You did a fine job of picking them, and I hope the games turn out just like we thought, where they're going to be that good of matchups to watch. So our next one features Hillsboro making a trip south to take on Cape Girardeau Central. The Class 4 third-ranked Hawks won their Week 1 matchup against Sykeston, as we discussed earlier, as junior quarterback Preston Brown had a big night with 4 touchdown passes and another one on the ground. Central is coming off of their own Week 1 win after defeating St. Charles 35-33 in a barn burner. Sophomore running back Keyshawn Boyd had his own big game for the Tigers, racking up 220 yards on the ground and collecting 4 touchdowns himself. Jim, as you said before, it's going to be interesting to see what Hillsboro does against the big boys. I'd say this is one of the big boys they're going to be facing up with.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you got to take the trip down 55 to, that terrific facility that Cape Central has.
Amazing.
It's just an unbelievable stadium. But no, this is a game a lot of people were talking about when we were going through our stuff with the state poll. This is a game that a lot of people are going to kind of.
You're the man.
Unbelievable. As I said, we won't edit that. We'll just because it's proving that I'm at school actually doing some work.
Oh, yeah. You're doing some work, right? Yeah.
It's proof. But no, Hillsboro, this is a nice matchup. Cape Central coming off of a nice victory over, a team that I think is going to surprise some people up here in St. Charles. And, they've got a good quarterback, but I really like this Hillsboro team. And what I personally want to see, Hillsboro, Festus, undefeated. Let's figure out the I-55 right there.
That's the hope, right? Fingers crossed, baby. Let's make it happen.
And then Hillsboro undefeated if they get North County, and then let those guys figure out their business. And then, it's just I like Hillsboro in this game. I just think they've got too much up front defensively. They just cause havoc. Those dudes are big. They're physical. They're nasty. They get after you. And I don't know if Cape Central's offensive line can stop them.
Yeah, and they just have so many weapons. And as you said, they can win in the trenches, and that's exactly what they do. If they need to throw the ball, they throw it. If they need to run the ball, they run it.
Yeah.
They're very balanced. They do whatever they need to do, and the defense plays hard, and they get after people. And I'm interested to see how they do against Central. I know that Central may not be as great as they have been, but at the same time, they are very, very good. This is a good football team.
Central's a very good football team, and they are going to be a team we're going to hear about in the postseason. But once again, I just think I don't know if they can hang with the dudes up front. That's going to be the tail of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next game features another team going to be making the trip down I-55, and that's the Howell Vikings. They're going to be taking on the Jackson Indians, the defending Class 5 champions who are now in Class 6. Struggled in their Week 1 matchup when you look at maybe scoring a lot of points. But, again, we can't say anything about Fort Zumwalt North. But they did outscore them 7-0 in the second half to secure a 21-17 win. The fourth-ranked team in Class 6 will have their hands full with a perennial powerhouse Jackson, even though they dropped their Week 1 matchup to Edwardsville, who's obviously no slouch, 21-30. The Indians are looking to return the favor after losing this matchup in a blowout last year, 14-41. So, Jim, when we take a look at this, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing Howell going into the pit for the first time, and they better get used to playing in an atmosphere like that. Once again, you go to Jackson, you're playing in one of the most hostile environments in the state of Missouri, if not the Midwest. They get a lot of people that'll go to games down there. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think the wake up call was last week for Howell. They're going to be a way different team than what they were this week or last week. Excuse me. I just really think that Shipley, Jude Jones, that defense, and we saw the defense have to step up in the second half last week and pitch a shutout to get that victory. But I think that's going to be where they win this ball game. Jackson coming off of a loss, and yes, Edwardsville is no slouch. They are just as good as advertised, and it'll be the big three over in the Southwestern Conference with East St. Louis, them and O'Fallon once again. But Jackson, new head coach. Got to remember, Brett Eckley left to go down to Bentonville, Arkansas, and take over the Harbor program. So new head coach that a lot of people up here are familiar with. He was at Troy for a bunch of years, and they've got some things that they're growing into. But I think how last week was the game that got their minds right a little bit. But you're still going down to the pit. And you better be ready to go when you walk into that place because it is as hostile of an environment as you're ever going to play in a high school stadium.
I mean, my cousins went to Jackson, and one of them played football, and I went down there to the game. I'm telling you right now, you are not joking. I was a little kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. This is madness, and nothing has changed. That place is a great environment to watch a football game and just to see.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. There's on that part of the state, there's not a lot of teams that have football when you get a little bit to the west. I mean, there's a big black hole of football. So some of those people who don't get a chance to watch football out in those counties, they'll drive over and watch Cape Central. They'll go watch Jackson play because they don't have that opportunity to go see it. So you have a lot of just casual fans who are like, hey, let's just go watch a football game on Friday night.
You'll get a lot of those fans that'll drive down to Haytide. They'll drive down to Malton. You're exactly right. I mean, you've got that I-55 corridor. Once you hit, Saxony Lutheran, Jackson, down that area, then you start hitting East Carter, you start hitting Advance, then you get down to Haytide, Caruthersville, Malden, all that. I mean, there's not a lot to the west of that, and you're exactly right. There's like this big cone, and people that love football, they're going to travel to watch those teams, and it's really neat to see.
Yeah, and then people like me who have family who live there and have cousins who played and whatnot. But I do look for Shipley to have a bounce back game. I mean, statistically wise, it wasn't the best, but obviously the defense and the offense did enough to get the job done. Defense played great in the second half of that game. Yeah, and I expected probably a little different turnout as far as how things go, and it should be one to kind of see. But I personally think that that was the Howell wake-up call, and you're going to see definitely a different team coming out in this week's matchup. Now, our next game might be one of the best highlighted games this week as we showcase Marquette taking on host Rockwood Summit. The Mustangs, ranked 10th in Class 6, got the better of Lafayette in a Week 1 slugfest 13-10 as the defense drew 2 interceptions and picked up 5 sacks, 3 by senior Brian, I'm going to say it wrong, but Fitzmaurice. And if that's exactly how it's said, I love it because that is my new favorite last name to say. Summit's offense fared much better in Week 1 as they torched Webster Groves 56-14 as senior quarterback Grant Gibson tossed 3 touchdown passes before coming out of the game and letting the second string play. Summit lost last year's matchup with an odd 14-2 finish. So, Jim, are we going to see the offenses or the defenses shine this time around?
I don't know. This is the game that, I don't know because this is one to where they both could show up or they both won't show up. But no, once again, Michael Stewart's just the job he's done at Marquette, bringing that program full circle has been terrific. Last year they just got stuck. And once again, they're in the same district this year. When you look at that Class 6 District 2 of death, with CBC, Marquette, Lafayette, Howell, those guys, and Kirkwood. and Vianney. I mean, my gosh, that district is just a meat grinder. But the job that Stewart's done, and it's a battle of Stewarts because you got Eric Stewart on the other side over at Rockwood Summit, who's just, once again, he's built a program out there. They've only lost 3 games in 2 years. You don't see that. They've made deep runs in the playoffs. You don't see that very often. And
No, you don't.
you're going to see 2 very well coached teams that are going to take the field. I think this is going to be like the game last week with Marquette and Lafayette. I think it's going to be a close, low-scoring game. Whoever has the ball last is going to have the opportunity to win, and it'll be that's the game that I'm probably going to end up going to. Number one, because it's easy in and easy out. Because Mitch Leftowitz, he lets me park down back. That way, when I need to leave, I can shuffle straight out of there. But but no, it'll be a packed house down at Summit, and that's another great facility. And it will be nuts down there on Friday night for that ball game.
I mean, I totally believe that we're going to see a just absolute slugfest. Just defense is going to be the key, and who breaks through. And you said it right. Took what I was going to say out of it. But I think whoever has the ball last is going to have a shot, because I'm looking at a 1-possession game.
Oh yeah,
no scoring, just like you. And again, I remember, I believe we previewed this game last year in the matchup, and there was all this talk about the defenses, and it just definitely lived up to the hype, because that was a weird score. That 14-2 score, you don't see that a lot in high school football, but when you got 2 great defenses and 2 coaches who just do such a fine job coaching up the defense, that's what you're going to see. And I'm looking at that going to be, I mean, hey, it just makes for maybe a quicker night when the defenses do all the work and everything's on the ground, right? Because
I'll be okay with
out of
that.
there.
Trust me, I'll be totally fine with that. On these 7:00 start, done by 9, perfect. I can get to the Fox 2 studio and relax for a little bit instead of rushing. So, but exactly, I mean, and that's how this game could go. It could be 2 teams that just want to grind it out. But you also got 2 quarterbacks that can throw the ball a little bit, and you got some receivers out on the edges that can do some work as well. So honestly, I don't know which way this game's going to go, but I do think that it's going to be a slugfest defensively. And once again, I think the last team that has the ball has the best chance to win.
I agree. Now, our final matchup is going to be a little bit different than maybe this game, because this could turn into a shootout. And it's our only matchup of state-ranked teams this week, and it features Festus taking a short trip down I-55. Seems like everybody's getting on the bus going down I-55 this week to take on Valley Catholic. The Tigers come into this game number 6, as we mentioned, in Class 4, and they won their Week 1 matchup against St. Genevieve 38-7, rushing for 266 total yards on the ground, as seniors Hayden Bates and Landon Yates, talk about a law firm name right there, combined for 5 touchdowns in the win. And despite losing their Week 1 matchup against Seckman 21-34, the Warriors enter the game ranked number 8 in Class 2. Valley couldn't find the end zone until after halftime, scoring 21 points through the air in the second half. Last year, the Warriors won this game big by beating Festus 48-20. So, Jim, got to know, what are we thinking this one?
I give the edge to Festus just a little bit, because once again, I think just they're going to wear down, Valley Catholic. But number one, you never count Valley Catholic out. We saw that in the second half last week. They're down, I think it was 21-0 at the half. And, they got punched in the mouth, but they battled back. They scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to make that game really interesting. And like I said, you give them 8 more minutes, I'm not so sure it's a 34-21 ball game. It's going to be a lot closer. But, once again, you're going down, you're playing at Valley, terrific place to play. But Festus has a lot. They've got some guys up front that I'm really impressed with. And that's where I think they win this ball game. Is I think they're going to control the line of scrimmage. But once again, for Valley Catholic, how many times have I said it, Chris? You don't need to go undefeated. You can lose a few games. Guess what? When it matters is at the end of the season. And Valley playing a Class 6 to start, then you play a Class 5 team. That's only going to help Judd and his crew get better, do better things, and we'll get them ready for that gauntlet they're going to have to run through in Class 2, including Lamar, who's everybody's number one. They got my vote, and they'll get my vote until somebody can prove that they can beat that juggernaut down out of the southwest corner of the state.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you playing a schedule like this, it's not like you're playing a bunch of cupcakes. Valley, not knowing where they're really going to fall, you can play the points and see which points come off the championship factor points. But at the same time, if you're wanting to make a serious run, they had with the team that they've had and the talent they've had and the program that they've had. Having that kind of schedule only prepares you for the end. As you said, if you want to beat Lamar, you're not going to beat him by playing a very weak schedule of teams that you got to sub your kids out after the first quarter because you're up 35-0. This is the kind of game that's going to prepare you for the postseason in Missouri high school football, especially when you're the smaller school.
It's going to get you better. And once again, it doesn't matter what you do right now. When it matters is at the end of the year when you get into districts. And once again, you look at CBC and, they go out, play a talented Carmel, Indiana team. They're going down to Bryan, Arkansas. You've got the back-to-back Class 6 state champs here in Missouri going against the 5-time defending state champs in Class 7 down in Class 4 or Class 6, down in Arkansas. Do you think Scott Pingle cares if they are going to run the table? Would it be nice? Yeah. Does he care? No. What does he care about? Faroe Field, December 4th, hoisting the Class 6 title. That's all he cares about. Same thing with Brent Shinaki. Do they care about going down and playing Jackson? No. Do they care if they go undefeated? Well, maybe the kids do. I guarantee you the coaches don't. It'd be nice. But what do they care about? Hoisting that Class 6 trophy on December 4th. And I love the coaches' scheduling philosophy. I love how they are scheduling big games. Heck, look at Kyle Wagner up at Lutheran North. 2 years in a row, you're playing 3-time defending state champs. And do I think that Lutheran North is going to be in the mix in Class 4? Absolutely 100%. And that they're not going to run the table. I mean, you've got a Blair Oaks team that is, I've already made the comment. I said it last year. I'm going to say it again. Give them the trophy. Just give them the Class 3 trophy. There is nobody that's going to touch them. And once again, you say that because of Ted LePage. You've got a new quarterback that's not named Hare that they've thrown in there, and they came out of the gate, got a big win last week. Blair Oaks is going to be tough. Then you've got to play Hal. Then you've got to play Cardinal Ritter later on in the year. Does Kyle care if they run the table? Absolutely not. What he cares about is being at Faroe Field, battling for a state championship in early December.
It's all that matters. At the end of the day, I just want to win the trophy. I don't care if I'm 500 and I win it. We won it. That's as a player, whatever I can do to have that, because I would much rather not be, 12 and then lose a game and won and never have a shot than I would be, like even DeSmet last year, having that kind of record and having a chance to, play in the state semifinals and almost make it there. That's the thing that matters at the end of the day, is having those experiences. And I mean, the coaches are starting to figure that out. They're starting to play these kind of games, and they're amping things up to make their programs better. And that's what I see. And going back to our game real quick, I mean, this has the chance of being a shootout for sure. Mm-hmm. I think Festus has a lot more weapons, as you said. I think they can win at the line. I think their ground game can keep the clock turning a little bit, which keeps Valley's passing offense off the field. Again, could turn into a shootout, but I think it'll be a little closer than last year. Obviously, either way it goes, but I do see this one being probably one of our more exciting games to watch this week that we previewed.
No, I agree 100% with that.
So anyway, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Don't forget Friday again, which is tomorrow, you have a chance to hear Coach Zach McVeigh call a game on Between the Lines Friday Night Football. We'll be doing the Bishop DeVerg St. Pius X game here at St. Pius. It's going to be produced by Off the Rails Media. I'm sure Jim will cover that, hopefully on Fox too, as long as it goes the way of the Lancers. And at the end, I'm kidding. It should be good. I think both teams are on the rise, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I just want to hear Zach. That's all. I just want to hear Zach. I just want to hear Zach talk football. That's all. Everything else will be good. That way, him and Jarvis will have something to fight about next week on the coach's box. So, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. I've already made the precursor call for next week.
There you go. Already putting that out there. And don't forget, you can catch the coach's box tonight at 8 p.m. Should, again, talk about a lot of fun. Don't have a graphic for it up here, but that's okay. Coach's box, 8 p.m. You can catch it Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever you want to catch it. You can see it. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. Jim, always a pleasure. Can't wait till next week so we can talk about what happened this week.
Absolutely. It's going to be a blast, a great weekend of games. Mother Nature is going to heat up a little bit, but not till Saturday and Sundays. So it's going to be great to get out and watch some games this week. Can't wait for it. And by the way, everybody, have a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy the time off. Enjoy the family. And plus, enjoy some great college football. Go Buckeyes.
I knew you were going to throw that in at the end, but that's okay. It's your show, Jim. So, again, appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of On the Move with the Caravan Sports Preview Show. Jim Powers. I'm Chris Miller. We'll see you guys all next week. This episode of On the Move with the Caravan is brought to you by Off the Rails Media. Life's more fun when you're off the rails.
Are you tired of boring sports talk shows? Then tune in to the Coach's Box. These guys don't just talk sports. They talk about whatever the heck they want to talk about. Watch new episodes of the Coach's Box each week for free on Facebook, YouTube, or the Streamline Sports app.